Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Realm of Unknown. I am your host Shane, and today we've got a rather interesting episode to discuss because it's a bit more of a news collective over the past several weeks because some weird stuff's been happening. And I'm not talking about, COVID and all the insane stuff happening across the world, but I'm talking about the stuff that's it's main news, but it's something that's sort of been, I guess, overshadowed in a lot of sense because of just how crazy this year's been. But before we get into that, I do have a quick bit of a shout out today. We are going to be talking about the Mystified podcast, which, if you are unfamiliar, is a podcast hosted by two incredible hosts by the name of Tasha and Steve, who cover essentially a lot of the same stuff we do here, and I'm sure you guys would enjoy. They talk about UFOs, ghost stories, hauntings, and all those sort of weird, mysterious news and sort of topics that kind of get you thinking about how weird this world sort of is. Their last episode actually went into the history and stories relating to the werewolves and how they've sort of made themselves a staple of our modern culture today and how they sort of stretch throughout the history. And it's something that I think you guys should totally check out. It's a really awesome podcast. They've got a few episodes up right now that you are able to check out across pretty much all major podcast platforms. I particularly listen to them over on Apple Podcasts, but you can check them out on Spotify, Pod News, Apple Podcast, and more. And that's sort of our transition, because honestly, I don't know how to fully put this into perspective when it comes to what this is, because I'm still a little fresh to this whole side of things. I'm definitely not the biggest expert when it comes to UFO topics, and that is what we are talking about today, and the subject of disclosure. Now, I have been interested in this stuff, obviously, for a very long time. However, again, as I mentioned, I'm not an expert in any means when it comes to sort of understanding how sort of deep things go, especially when it comes to government relations and sort of how things have evolved over the decades, especially within our country and obviously across the globe. That being said, however, across the past several weeks, we have been getting some rather interesting little snippets of news. Obviously, we had that major dump of UFO footage and declassification relating to the U.S. Navy a few months back, and then, a few years back, the end of 2018 into 2019. And it's just been a crazy time for UFO, historians and UFO experts and people who are interested in the field, as disclosure just becomes like a casual thing. It's not even like, oh, big news. It's just, this happened. And one of the stories that I do want to talk about today is pertaining to the Ex-Pentagon officials who are quoted as saying that they have off-world vehicles and off-world material in our military bases. Like, they just casually dropped the ball by saying, hey, we've got off-world machines, off-world crafts. And I'm going to be reading through an article from The Independent, from independent.co.uk. I will be leaving the link down below for you guys to check out, as well as some snippets from other articles that I find, the rest of them being compiled from unexplainedmysteries.com, which is a sort of collective of weird stories. And over there, they'll have their own individual sources that each story comes from. Alright, so let's get into the Independent article, and then I'll sort of give my 2 cents on what's sort of happening overall. And the article is titled, Pentagon UFO Unit is Publicly Releasing Some Findings After Ex-Official Says, quote, Off-World Vehicle Found. This is something from outside this planet. It might actually be better than the Chinese or the Russians, says Marco Rubio. There's a subtext with the article title, and if you're not aware, Marco Rubio is a sitting U.S. senator, I believe. But let's get into the article. This was posted on Friday, July 24th of this year by Gino Spaccia. I believe that's how you pronounce your name. I apologize if I'm pronouncing it wrong. A Pentagon UFO unit will make some investigations public as ex-advisor suggests that, quote, vehicles not made on this earth, end quote, were placed in U.S. government storage. The team will update the U.S. Senate's Intelligence Committee on its unidentified flying object, or UFO, research every 6 months, the New York Times reported on Thursday. Again, this is a dated article. Publicly named in 2019 as the Unidentified Aerial Phenomenon Task Force, or AFib, I don't know if that's the right one, but obviously we changed it from UFO to UAPs, just to be a bit more, I guess, I don't know how to describe it. The Pentagon unit succeeded in investigating UFO program that had said to have been disbanded prior to 2017. Now, I believe this is referring to, what's the name of it? I can't remember off the top of my head. It's not Project Blue, but that's way older. ATIP, if that's the right one. I could be wrong, though. One former official by the name of Eric David said to the New York Times that he was briefed that the U.S. Department of Defense in March about the retrieval of, quote, off-world vehicles not made from this earth. The Pentagon consultant and subcontractor said objects he believed that we, quote, couldn't make ourselves were discovered during his time within the unit, where he worked since 2007. While it's no crash artifact were ever been documented in public, Harry Reid, the former Democratic Senate Majority Leader, told the New York Times that he, quote, came to the conclusion that UFO materials were in fact in the possession of the U.S. government. He's then quoted as saying, after looking into it, I came to the conclusion that there were some reports, some were substantive, some were not, that there were actual materials that the government and the private sector had in their possession, says the former senator from Nevada. This is not known it is not known in which detail the Pentagon unit will provide to the Senate, while its acting Intelligence Committee Chairman Marco Rubio said last week that his priority was to uncover who was behind the unidentified flying vehicles seen over American military bases. Now that is huge. I saw his clip of him having that interview. That is a massive thing, because for years and years and years now, there have been reports and public sightings and documented encounters from military installations across the world that strange objects are being seen over top of them, whether they are a military base, whether they're like a missile silo, aircraft carrier, any sort of military aspect. They have had reports of strange objects that they can't fully identify being in their airstream or in their airspace. And obviously, this could easily be a foreign country doing this sort of stuff, but to the fact that we can't fully identify them nor track them or really understand them, if it's extraterrestrial out of this world, or if it is from this world and it's from a foreign country, either one of those conclusions is really devastating in a way that we can't manage it, and we also can't combat it in any way. We don't really know anything about it, and it can just sort of pop in and out of our highly secure locations with ease. The article goes on as quoting Rubio by the following: "We have things flying over our military bases and places where we are conducting military experiments, and we do not know what it is, and it isn't ours." That is, again, huge, and this is with the interview with CBS Miami, in which he is quoted from, and I believe that's the clip in which I saw, so I will try to link that as well. He continues as saying, frankly, that if it's something from out of this world, that might actually be better than the fact that we've seen some technologies leap on behalf of the Chinese or the Russians or some other adversary. Again, that's what I mentioned earlier. If this was a terrestrial thing from a foreign country or foreign power, if they have this sort of technology that we are not able to keep up with or even really monitor properly, that's a problem. The Senate committee mandated that Pentagon unit to standardize collection and reporting on unidentified aerial phenomena as part of the 2021 spending plan on intelligence agencies. So they're moving forward on this. They are really pushing this for the coming months, the coming years, and we could easily be expecting more. Again, this is something that is actively developing and has been developing for a while now. Let me see if I can pull up the other articles that I was going to talk about. Okay, here's another article. This one was posted by the Popular Mechanics. This is from the Unexplained Mysteries Collective. This one says the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, or AATIP, which I mentioned earlier, which has been the top secret initiative designed to investigate credible reports of UFOs, allegedly closed its doors back in 2012. So this was the one that originally, I believe, thought was to be shut down. However, since then has been an ongoing rumor suggesting that investigations did not actually stop. Now, the new report published by the New York Times, which I believe this is what the Independent cited earlier, so this is sort of the same story, just different perspective, has seemingly confirmed that this is indeed the case. According to the article, the UFO task force continued to operate as part of the Office of Naval Intelligence and aims to standardize collection of reportings and sightings of UAVs. Again, being unidentified aerial vehicles. So that's huge, and that's likely a reason as to why we got some of the disclosed videos and reports coming out from the Navy itself, with the Navy aircraft and I believe it was radar footage of an unidentified object. So that's big. That's big to know that they are working in some sort of collective. According to the recent Senate committee report, its goal includes determining if such objects are linked to foreign governments, as well as whether or not they possess any threat to our military. The report also quotes former Nevada Senator Harry Reid, a key figure in the original AATIP program, as saying he believes the materials obtained from crashes all over the world have been studied by aerospace companies under government contracts for years. And he's... To be fair, Harry Reid has sort of been a forefront when it comes to disclosure, and a little bit to his own fault. And I would say, in a way, he's a bit too gung-ho about it. I think, to be fair, he's still a U.S. senator, an ex-U.S. senator. But he definitely had that stigma of being like, oh, it's the crazy UFO guy, even though he was actively trying to dissolve the stuff, which is credible in its own right. I just want to sort of mention that in a way, because I'm not super major when it comes to all aspects of politics and knowing every key player. However, at the surface level, that is sort of how you heard of Harry Reid. So I think a lot of people didn't fully take him seriously in a lot of ways, and that probably hurt him more than it benefited him. He's continued as quoting, after looking into this, I have come to the conclusion. All right, so that's the same quote from the previous article about him thinking that materials are in possession of either governments or private individuals across the globe. Even more intriguing still is the quote from aerophysicist Eric David, a consulate with the original program, who claims to have studied materials that, quote, we couldn't make ourselves. According to the report, as recently as March of this year, he gave a briefing to the Department of Defense, or DoD, on the topic of retrieving materials from, quote, off-world vehicles not made of this earth. I believe this is the guy that sparked the whole ex-Pentagon official, which is essentially a part of the DoD. So I think he is technically who they're referring to. If you see that title, I believe he is the ex-official. If all of this is true, then we will likely be hearing more about these revelations in the near future. It seems that the US government knows a lot more about the topic than it is letting on. And I think that's always been the case, though to be fair, I think overall, I personally don't think the government knows a whole lot more than we do as the general public. I think obviously they know a bit more of what's actually happening, like detail-wise, but I don't think there's this like hidden cabal of government relation with aliens and all this sort of stuff. I think they're clueless in a lot of ways of what's happening. They just know it's happening a bit more than we sort of let on to, maybe. Because I think if it was a bit more obvious, I don't think it would have been kept a secret for this long. Honestly, I think it would have slipped out. It would have been revealed in some way. Honestly, it's weird to think if there is some like other aspects of the government that sort of keep these things hush hush from other avenues and channels. Obviously, we have the presidents, and that's another thing. Donald Trump recently was questioned multiple times on his relation with disclosure and how he feels about these sort of new stories coming out. He's quoted as saying, he's working on it, he's pushing towards full transparency. Personally, I think that's a bit of like a bluff in a lot of ways. I'm saying this completely objective. I personally don't enjoy him being in the presidency, but I'm not speaking in that regard. I think, honestly, he just doesn't have... I don't think he knows. I honestly don't think he knows. I don't think he would be read in on this sort of stuff. Honestly, if Kennedy was trying to do this sort of stuff, if past presidents have been trying to do this stuff and saying that they're going to try to get these things out there, I don't know fully how much they actually knew. I think for the most part, they were just trying to get information from other channels of the government, particularly the military side, because I think they handle a bit more of this stuff. I don't think Trump really knows anything when it comes to like full-on disclosure. He says stuff, obviously. He's like, I know this stuff. It's very interesting. I'm going to work on trying to get it out there. He like touts the whole lots of people like to go to Area 51. They want to know what happened in Roswell. It's like, I think that's all he really knows. He knows like the surface level stuff of like what's already been in public, like the public ether for years and years and years now. Like if you were to ask a teenager or a child about aliens, he probably knows a bit around that much when it comes to basic surface level things. I think he just says that he's going to try it. Honestly, I think our best bet is coming from these inquiries from the committees in the Senate about trying to get further disclosure rather than transparency. And we'll see. We'll see how this goes. We'll see how this develops. Obviously, it's going to be a bit more time before I think another story like this particular one hits. The way it's been going, it's like every 4 to 6 months we'll get like another major snippet. So we should probably be expecting something come like late fall or early winter. But around that time, obviously, coronavirus is probably going to spike up again, especially here in the U.S. So we'll see what actually happens there, because I don't know what's going to happen. Honestly, I honestly don't know. But yeah, so that's a lot of what I wanted to talk about with today's episode. Talking about disclosure and talking about all the crazy stuff that's happening. And sort of how things are developing when it comes to the UFO phenomena and our government's relationship to it. Again, I hope you guys enjoyed, and be sure to go and check out the Mystified podcast. If you have the time, definitely do so. It's definitely worth it. I'm listening to them now on my commute to work as one of my like top podcast lists because they're just great. It's just a fun time. And they talk about a lot of interesting things, and I think you guys should definitely check them out. It's a lot of like fun, active, and sort of lighthearted vibe to it. It's definitely a fun time. But aside from that, I hope you guys did enjoy this. I hope you guys do check them out, and if you guys have any stories or interests or stuff you want me to check out personally, be sure to email me at realmofunknown@gmail.com or reach out to me at realmofunknown at Instagram or Twitter. I'm mainly on Twitter, but you can catch me on both. And until then, I hope you guys enjoy and remember to stay spooky.